So in September, I've been for many years wanting to make an aerial tour out west and look at the terrain from the perspective of Noah's flood, keeping in mind that once you get to the Rockies, the Rampart Range of the Rockies, from there westward, the Earth is very much today as it was the day that Noah and his family came off the ark, because it hasn't had enough rain to make it erode, and the formations are just so spectacular. So what Marsha and I did was we took a 4-day flying tour, and we did not do any ground traveling. I just wanted this to be a flying trip where we took pictures of the most spectacular formations. So there are a lot of things out west to see, for example, Zion Park and so on, that are really better seen from the ground, but we focused on those things that would be most interesting from the air. And there are 3 regions that we took pictures of. One is the Rocky Mountains, from Colorado Springs westward to Telluride. That's the area that was uplifted, and it's like the jagged ice packs on the Mississippi River that you see that the flood occurred. Then from there west, we have the Colorado Plateau. Turn this on. Yeah, the first day was the Rocky Mountains. The second day was the Colorado Plateau, which is the Colorado River high plateau, and it's heavily sedimented. It has thousands of feet of sediment, and it's relatively flat. And what happened was, after the flood, it was lifted up, and that's what caused the water to run off and form the Grand Canyon and the tributary canyons. And you'll see it's as if we call it Midwest a gully washer. When you have a gully washer, it doesn't make nice, soft, rounded shapes. It makes deep, steep shapes and rips up rocks and things like that. And that's what we'll see in Monument Valley and the Grand Canyon, Lake Powell, and down to Sedona. And then the third day, we came back to Santa Fe along the high desert, which was the southern portion of the Colorado Plateau, and then home on the 4th day. So this was the first day was the first day we took off was on the 20th of September. And this was our destination the first day. Telluride, Colorado. It's the highest commercial airport in the United States at 9,070 feet. And it's in a blind canyon surrounded on 3 sides by 13,000 foot San Juan Mountains, 14,000 foot. It has a 1,000-foot canyon on 3 sides here, as you can see. So it's just a spectacular place to fly to. So that was our destination the first day. This shows the map. We took off from Cedar Rapids here, flew over Des Moines, Omaha to Grand Island, Nebraska. That was the first stop. There's Marsha really had to work. She was the co-pilot, the navigator, and also the photographer. She took over 1,000 pictures on this trip. This is approaching Grand Island, Nebraska, and I included this picture just to show you the difference between the Midwest that was relatively untouched by the flood. All that happened was that the entire Midwest before the flood was covered by shallow sea. That's why you had a lot of seashells and things in the Midwest. But it was basically just drained in the flood and didn't have a lot of cataclysmic activity. Then we went from Grand Island over western Nebraska, Colorado to Colorado Springs. And the first thing we saw as we approached the Rampart Range was Pikes Peak, 14,110 feet above the clouds, sticking above the clouds there. In fact, I think I have a closer picture that Marsha took. And this was a volcano that erupted right on the Front Range. When the mountains were lifted up, the western part of the U.S. was jammed eastward, and the mountains were pushed up over the rest of the terrain. That's why the Rocky Mountains are so high, and they're very uniform. Have you ever wondered why there are no mountains higher than 14,300 in Colorado, but there are like 70 14ers? Isn't that something like that? Kerry can correct me if I'm wrong. He's a Colorado geological expert here. But it was, as they were jammed up, In that fault along the Rampart Range, there were several volcanoes, and this was one of the super volcanoes that I would suggest exploded during the flood. Okay, now we begin touring the Rocky Mountains in earnest, and so you'll notice on this we had clouds, so we were going to fly just directly up over Pikes Peak. We've done that before, but instead, because we had clouds, we stayed below the clouds and we flew south to Pueblo and then up the Arkansas River Canyon behind the Pikes Peak. So here you can see we flew, this is Pikes Peak right here. We flew south to Pueblo, we followed the Arkansas River. The first thing I wanted to see was the Royal Gorge, and then we flew up. These are the low mountains, and this is the the wet mountains, and this is the Wet Mountain Valley, and this is the Sangre de Cristo Mountains of the Rockies, and this is the Continental Divide right here. We flew over Monarch Pass, and we'll see the ski area where Rochelle and Travis go skiing each year, and then coming out into the Broad Valley. Now all the rivers flow westward from here. And we flew down the Gunnison. We saw the Black Canyon of the Gunnison and followed that up here. That's a magnificent, just a huge crack in the earth that occurred. And the reason it's called the Black Canyon is because the sunlight never reaches the bottom. And so as we fly along here, we'll have pictures of the mountains to our left. And then from here, we went down along Cimarron Ridge. Cimarron Ridge is in the Uncompahgre Wilderness here, and it's a magnificent. It has some formations called the Pinnacles up against the San Juan Mountains. So we flew down here to Ridgeway, went west, because Telluride is right here, and it's surrounded on three sides by the San Juan Mountains. So we flew around it and up the San Miguel River Gorge and landed there. That was our first day's experience. So here we're flying, this is the Arkansas River. We're going west down here, and you can see the mountains starting to form, starting to show up in the distance here to the north. And this is Canyon City, Colorado. This is the exit of the Royal Gorge. Now the Royal Gorge was a river before this mountain came into being, because it splits the mountain right in two. The Royal Gorge is 1,053 feet deep, and it's a magnificent canyon. You can ride through it on a train and take a scenic tour through it, or there's a suspension bridge right here that you'll see. But this mountain, which is a 1,000-foot mountain, had to be lifted up as the river was already there for it to have flowed through it in the way that it did. This is the Royal Gorge, looking at it from the east, and we circled around to the south. We did a circle to the south and then to the west. So here's the suspension bridge over the Royal Gorge right here. You can see last year they had extensive forest fires, and you can see the forest fire that was burned near the Royal Gorge. In fact, I'm not sure that it's still open, that it's open even now. But we can see it. And here's the bridge. It's the highest suspension bridge in the world, 1,053 feet. You can drive across or walk across. And that's Canyon City. Oh, sorry. Hit the wrong button. Okay, that's Canyon City in the distance to the east. We're looking east now, down the Arkansas River. And there Marsha took a picture looking down into the canyon as much as we could. Then we turned and went westward again. This is the Arkansas River and Highway 50 going west to Salida, Colorado. Again, this is the Arkansas River flowing out. It flows from this large valley. Salida is at the head of the valley, and the Arkansas River flows down there. These are the Sangre de Cristo range of the Rocky Mountains. They extend from Colorado down into New Mexico, and they're very, very rugged. And again, as you look at these, there's two perspectives that you can look at this from. On the one perspective, and we're going to talk about this in coming weeks, based on the psalm that we close with today. There's two perspectives. One is you can look at this and say, my, what beauty. The other way to look at it is, my, what devastation, what destruction, what total catastrophe. I'd like you to think about it from the latter today. I want us to see the effects of the flood, and that when God forced the land eastward, it formed an ice dam and jammed up the rocks, just like the Mississippi River when it has an ice dam, and you see all the jagged ice flows. This is the low mountain, or I keep calling it low mountain, the wet mountain valley looking to the south, and that's the San Juan, or the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in the distance here. And that is the Continental Divide, where the rivers all flow eastward. If a drop of water flows on this side of the mountain, it flows into the Atlantic Ocean. If it falls on the other side, it goes to the Pacific Ocean. Now we're flying up the Arkansas River Valley again towards Salida. Salida is at the head of the valley. These are two mountains of the Sangre de Cristo range. This is called Methodist Mountain, and this is called Mount Etna. And we flew rather, I went over close to the mountains so we get a good close-up here. So we're flying along the mountains. And once again, it reminds you of ice packs that have been jammed up together. These are not volcanic mountains, they are thrusted up mountains. They've been forced upward by the compressing, by the pushing together of the earth in the Rocky Mountains. And this is the timberline right here. You can see the trees don't grow above that. These are 13,000-foot mountains. And we had to climb up. The Arkansas River Valley is about 5,000 feet. We crossed the Continental Divide at Monarch Pass, and the elevation there was 11,000 feet, so we had to climb up 6,000 feet. Here's some more close-ups. Mount Etna. This is Monarch Pass, just west of Salida. You have to climb up into the mountains. This is the ski area where Rochelle and Travis go skiing each year, and this ridge is the Continental Divide right here. That's 11,300 feet. Here we took a shot from the top as we were crossing over the ridge. Now we're going down the other side toward the left, and we'll be flying toward Gunnison, and now all the rivers flow westward. The Arkansas River flows east, the Gunnison River flows west. And this is called this is called Dawson Ridge right here. And there's a dome. Now this is a volcanic dome. It wasn't an explosive volcano, but what happened was the molten lava forced its way up and just simply formed a dome and pushed the mountain up this way. Now we're entering the Gunnison Valley. This is the Blue Mesa Reservoir. It's at the head of the Gunnison Valley. This was a canyon, and it's been dammed up down here by the Blue Mesa Reservoir. Those are Elk Mountains in the distance. Notice here's some interesting formation. These are called pinnacles, and they're just sharp little pinnacles. And what happened was it had a hard cap, and the water eroded down and cut the gully washer. I call it the Great Flood. Cut down the pinnacles to make them narrow spires. Okay, here's Blue Mesa Dam, and this is the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. Starting here, it goes westward and then northward, and we'll follow it for a little ways here. This is Highway 50 going to Montrose. This is looking down into the Black Canyon of the Gunnison.
And how high are the walls? You can see a little of the aspen starting to form in the mountains on the left. How high are those walls?
These walls are roughly 800 to 1,000 feet high here.
And the first night when we stayed in Telluride, we ate in a hotel there, and the young guy, they're all young when they're kayakers, he was talking to us, and he said, in this picture, we're below the dam, aren't we, Ken?
Yes, yes.
Okay, this is one picture where you can see a little of the water, and he said he's kayaked it twice, but he said when you put in below the dam, you're committed for 2 days, because you can't get out of there until you're done.
Okay, now we've turned northwestward toward Montrose, and it's interesting because it's a valley to the left, and this canyon actually flows through a high ridge. Now figure out how that happened. You know, water doesn't do that naturally. So this was a crack in the earth that appeared that the river actually flowed through. And there's a lookout right up here. What we're going to do is we'll fly northward. We're about 400 feet above the ground here. We'll fly up this way, do a circle, and then come back south.
But this is still Black Canyon.
This is the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. Here's the little lookout. Now we're facing south. We've just come up from here. Now we're looking back upriver to the east, and this is the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. Russ said that he stood with his father here, and his father was afraid to stand next to it. He said he got a queasy feeling looking down 1,000 feet into the canyon. Now we flew south from the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, and this is called Cimarron Ridge. These are the San Juan Mountains here, and that's Mount Uncompahgre right there. This is also called the Uncompahgre Wilderness, and believe me, it is a wilderness. If I were ever going to go camping out there, I think this would be much prettier even than up around Rocky Mountain National Park, because this is just incredible formations. It's also called the Owl Creek Recreational Area. So we will see these formations over against the San Juans as we get closer, and then these extremely sharp cutoffs. Now you can see when the flood came, the gully washer, it cut these canyons straight down, but then the debris just fell off and formed the lower portions, which are kind of slanted there.
These were just stunning as we were flying by, and you can see ridge after ridge after ridge. And these walls are very, very tall.
Right, and you can tell from the layers, these are still layered sedimentary rocks. These are not volcanic form. This area was lifted up because this is around 10,000 feet, much higher than the Colorado Plateau, which is around 8,000 feet, and yet the formations are still basically flat. They've just been ripped up and shoved upward like layers of ice flows. This is the area called the Pinnacles along Cimarron Ridge. San Juan Mountains, that's Mount Uncompahgre. This is called Chimney Rock, right here. And over here there's a mountain called Courthouse Mountain, and you'll see why it's called that. Now look at the ruggedness of these formations. This is not formed by slow process by any means. These are absolutely catastrophically formed. I don't know how else to say it. If you've ever seen a gully washer going even through rocky areas, it will cut through solid rock and form these kinds of sharp formations. This is called Courthouse Mountain. Looks like a pyramid. This is the lower end of Cimarron Ridge, and Ouray is just about 10 miles away to the west here. Now we've turned west again because we couldn't get over these San Juan Mountains. I mean, we could, but then I'd have to descend into Telluride. So we turned west and went around the San Juans and up the Blind Canyon. So now we've turned west. We're turning south, getting ready to land at Telluride. These are the southern San Juans, the southern side of the Box Canyon, and to the left is Telluride Airport. This is the San Miguel River, San Miguel Gorge, and it originates, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little peak standing right there. It's called Lizard Head. It's a famous, there's a pass called Lizard Head Pass, and this was gold mining country, and the Lizard Head Pass, the highway comes up by that, and then it goes to Ophir, and then down the valley to Telluride. This canyon is about 1,000 feet deep. The highway is at the bottom of it. And we're right over the Dallas Divide. So there's a bit of a plateau here. What we're going to do is fly. Marsha took this looking over to the left. We're going to fly southward and then turn left and go up the canyon to land. We're almost ready to make our left turn. We can't turn left right now because there's a 13,000 foot mountain right off to our left here. Now you can see the airport. There's the airport, and here's the mountain range. This is called Mount Sneffels. And that's Bald Mountain right there where the Telluride ski area is. In fact, you can see the ski resort right here. Now we've turned eastward and we're landing. Telluride is tucked up in this canyon, in this box canyon. Here's the ski resort and the ski area right here, and this is Bald Mountain.
And most important, straight ahead is the runway.
Yeah. No, there's something more important than that. The propeller is still turning. That's a good thing. Although after we landed, there was a glider. There was a guy giving glider rides out in this area. It's fabulous gliding country because the currents, the air currents, give you lift from the ridges, and you can just fly like eagles on the ridges all day out there in gliders. Now you can see the San Miguel Gorge. You can see Telluride in the distance and the plateau that we're about to land on. This is Mount Sneffels, the Sneffels Mountains to the north of the airport.
We're on the ground.
We're on the ground now. and this is what the San Miguel Gorge looks like coming from Lizard Head Pass to Ophir and then down this way. You can't see, but right off the end of the runway is a 1,000-foot drop.
You know, when we came across right before the numbers, touching down on the runway, that dropped off.
Yeah, you can see it dropping off right here.
And it just goes straight down.
Yeah.
It's really a rush. But anyway, when we got on the ground, I photographed from the airports just because it looks so different from Cedar Rapids.
Here's the town of Telluride. We're driving now. We got a rental car and we're driving toward Telluride. This is called Chicago Peak right here. And in another picture, you'll see the Bridal Veil Falls, which is the highest waterfalls in Colorado. They come right down here. You can barely see the Bridal Veil Falls and the town of. Now notice this looks like tiny little buildings down here. Notice the scale, the incredible scale of. These are 2- and 3-story buildings against the incredible 14,000-foot San Juans. Now we're in town, looking at the north, looking at the east. Looking south, there's the this is east. There's the Bridal Veil Falls right here. That's Chicago Mountain there. If I say something wrong, Carrie, you correct me, okay? This is Bald Mountain, the top of the ski resort. Anybody want to go skiing down there? This is downtown Telluride. You're in an authentic 1800s gold mining town. I didn't include a lot of the pictures of the town and so forth because my main objective today is to show you the terrain. Now the second day we took off from Telluride, and this was our objective the second day. This little airport sits, it's like an aircraft carrier sitting on top of a 500-foot mesa in Sedona, Arizona, and that's our destination the second day. We flew from Telluride to Page, Arizona, and then from Page to Sedona. This is all the Colorado Plateau. So here's the end of the Rocky Mountains right here. So the second day we flew west from Telluride. We flew up the San Miguel Gorge looking at Dolores. Now all of the rivers drain northwestward here. This is the San Juan River here. This is the Colorado River here. And Lake Powell and then the Grand Canyon down here. So we flew west out of the San Juans, made a left turn around Cone Mountain, flew south, and this is Ute Mountain here, which is a volcanic, what they call a laccolith, which is a volcanic intrusion of lava that simply forced the mountain up. It didn't actually explode, it just forced it upward into a mountainous shape. This is the Ute Indian and Navajo Indian reservations, and they are sovereign nations in these areas. And these are their holy, sacred mountains. Ute Mountain and Navajo Mountain here. Both of them are about 11,000 feet high. And you'll see now from here, the land is extremely flat, or was. This is the Colorado Plateau, all of this area here. And it was lifted, it has about 3,000 foot of sediment, and then it was lifted up. As the land was forced eastward, the Rocky Mountains were crunched upward, but this area remained flat, but it was lifted up so that when the flood when the water was dissipating, was flowing off, the water found a path through the Grand Canyon, and it did a gully rip through the Grand Canyon, and it tore away the soil, the sediment from this area here called Monument Valley. And you'll see what happened. The San Juan River, for example, was a little river, and then as the area lifted up, it dug deeper and deeper and deeper in its meandering course. So it's very unusual. Around here, if a river meanders, it's because it's flowing really slowly. That's true. That's the only reason that a river meanders, is because it flows slowly through very shallow terrain. But if once it's formed, if the land starts lifting, then it will start flowing faster and cutting down within its own bed. And so you have entrenched meanders rather than a straight shot. So what we did was, we flew past Ute Mountain. We'll see the Navajo little villages of Bluff, Utah, and Halchita. Then Monument Valley, which is an incredible area of eroded structures that are 1,500, 2,000 feet high. It's just hoodoos and plateaus and buttes that were left as the water rushed from here up to this way and down the Grand Canyon. This is called Lake Powell and Glen Canyon Dam, and there's Page, Arizona. Then from Page we turned southward. We flew along Marble Canyon here, which is it's the top end of the Grand Canyon, and then the Little Colorado River Gorge. You cannot fly over the Grand Canyon. It's a no-fly zone, so we could fly right up to the rim, and you'll see the rim. And then we flew up the Little Colorado Gorge here to Flagstaff, the San Francisco Mountains, and Humphreys Peak. And then there's an area of volcanoes here, little volcanoes called Sunset Crater National Park, and we took pictures of several of those, including SP Crater. And then we flew off the Mogollon Rim. I got to say that right. Mogollon Rim. Mogollon Rim. Yeah, the Mogollon Rim, which is right along here. And the Colorado Plateau, all of a sudden there's an escarpment, and it drops 3,000 to 4,000 feet into the lower lands around Phoenix. And Sedona is right in that basin where the Colorado Plateau ends, and it goes down 4,000 feet into that basin. So this is taking off from Telluride. Now we're going back to the west. The day before we had come in across this river landing eastward. Now we're taking off going westward, and we'll pick up the Dolores River going westward.
Go back to that, Ken.
Okay?
That's right after takeoff.
Right.
Shot that up the...
And this is Colorado Highway, I think it's 146, and this is called Dallas Divide right here. It divides the Rocky Mountains from the westward tributaries of the San Miguel River and the Dolores River going westward. Now the terrain is going to be very different. No longer are we going to have these high, jagged peaks. We're going to have a flat plateau that has been eroded downward by the gully washing. And you can see that here. Notice these escarpments. It's sort of like Scottsbluff, Nebraska, if you've been there. The water in the flood rushed out this way, up the Dolores River Canyon. These are called the La Salle Mountains in the distance in Utah. But basically, look how flat it is. It's all the Colorado Plateau. The basic Colorado Plateau is about 8,000 feet, and it's been eroded down to about 5,000 feet by the washing of the flood. But again, these were sharp. When the water first formed them, this was a cliff that went all the way down, and then the debris, as the water receded, the debris just sort of filled in at the bottom. We have several shots of these. A good reference is the La Salle Mountains in the distance here. We're flying now. We've turned around the Cone Mountain. We're flying southward toward Cortez and Ute Mountain. This is called the McPhee Reservoir, just north of Cortez. Now we're ready to make a right turn. Okay, we're looking southward here, and this is Ute Mountain, or it's called Sleeping Ute Mountain. Is the actual mountain. There are several mountains, and the tallest one's called Sleeping Ute Mountain. It's one of the Native Americans' holy mountains, and Cortez is right over here. So we're ready to turn westward. Now we're going to make a turn westward and fly right by Ute Peak. There's Sleeping Ute Mountain. And the terrain gets very different from here on. This is the San Juan River flowing westward into the Colorado River. And this is the town of Bluffs, Utah. This formation is called the Comb, and if you'd see it on the ground, it's about 500 feet high, and it's an escarpment that has all these sharp faces, and it looks like a comb, so it's called the Comb. Unfortunately, when you're in the air, you don't get the perspective of size because there's nothing close to compare things to. So you really need to see this on the ground. And in fact, I took the liberty of including a couple shots from the ground of some of these formations, just so you can see what it looks like from the ground. Okay, here's the lower edge of the Comb, and this is the San Juan River. Now you'll notice this mountain in the distance. That's Navajo Mountain. That's a good reference for you to keep for the next pictures, because we're going to do a lot of maneuvering around. We'll fly southwest and then north and then west again. But wherever you see Navajo Mountain, that's an 11,000-foot mountain. That's a volcanic dome also, and that's the Navajo Indians' sacred mountain. You cannot climb it. You may not climb it. It's illegal because of that. But it'll be a reference point in the pictures. And here it's about 50 miles away, and we're flying toward it, basically. The next thing we will see is the San Juan River here enters an area called the corkscrew, or no, the goosenecks. And here are the goosenecks. And that's what I was saying before. It was a slow, meandering river, and then when the land was lifted up, rather than creating a new course, it just cut down deeper and deeper within the course that it already had. This is about 800 feet deep. It's magnificent to see some pictures taken by kayakers from the bottom. There's Navajo Mountain again, and look to the west. So if you were a kayaker down in the bottom here, I mean, these are trees here. So that's how. And notice how flat it is. See, this was not thrust up like the Rocky Mountains. This was flat. But look at all the sediment. There are thousands of feet of sediment. And what the flood did was as it ripped the earth, it had tidal waves back and forth, and each wave would deposit a different layer of sediment, and that's what gives it all the different colors. And so when the river, after the flood, when the mountains were raised up and the valleys sank down, then this river cut down through that sediment before it hardened into hard rock, and that's why you see all these beautiful layers now. Now, I showed this. Look at the different little escarpments here. Do you know when you have a flood, like the Cedar Rapids flood, or when a lake floods, as the waters go down, it'll stop and then it'll go down again. Look, each place it stops as it goes down, it leaves a little path like that, a little cutoff. So you can see that the water went down by stages over the next 180 days after the first 150 days. When the water was receding from the earth, the Pacific Ocean was sinking down to fill the space that had been left by the continent being formed, and now the water was rushing off, and as it rushed off, it left these results. And you can see the basic Colorado plateau elevations here, and this is about 1,000 feet below that elevation. This is the little town of Hachita. Is it Hachita? Hachita, Utah. It's on the Arizona border near Mexican Hat. Mexican Hat is a very interesting structure. It has a rock sitting, this huge rock sitting on top of this small pinnacle that was left as the water rushed off and eroded everything around this hard rock. So this is Hachita, Utah. Now we're entering Monument Valley. We're flying southwest. This is called Black Mesa in the distance, and this is the basic level of the Colorado Plateau, which is about 8,000 feet. Now the valley floor here is around the valley floor is around 6,000 feet here, and these structures are about 1,500 to 2,000 feet high. The Sears Tower, or it's called the Willis Tower in Chicago now, is 1,452 feet. So these structures are taller than the Sears Tower. And they don't look like it from here, but I'll show you some pictures as we get closer. So this valley, the water flowed northward toward the Colorado River Canyon, and it basically just ripped all the sediment out of this valley and left these little formations. Wherever there was kind of a hard cap, it resisted erosion and it formed these structures. There's Navajo Mountain in the distance again. We're getting closer. Now we're about 25 miles away. And this is Monument Valley. It's on the Navajo Indian Reservation. As I said, these structures are about 1,500 feet high. They don't look like it from here, but I included a couple of photographs to let you see from the ground. Okay, is it going to... It goes back, we'll go forward. It goes backwards, but not forward. Okay. There we go.
These are just pictures of the structures that we took as we went by.
Right. And there has been no rain here, basically, for the last 4,000 years. That's why these structures could stay as sharp as they are. This is very, very desert-like. They only get an average of 6 inches of rain a year. So basically, what you're seeing is the way it was the day Noah and his family got off the ark. This is what it looks like from the ground. So this is the valley floor, and it's 1,500 feet up to the top. Now the basic plateau, Colorado Plateau, used to be flat across this whole thing until the flood. Here's the same thing. This is the same picture taken from the air now. I asked Marsha to take this one even though it's a little bit fuzzy because here's a very narrow spire. This thing is only about 10 feet across, but it's 1,000 feet high. And that can only be formed by rushing water in a gully washer. This is this one is we diverted left because I saw this in the distance. This is called Meridian Butte. And it is a sharp, knife-edged butte. It's no more than 20 or 30 feet thick, and it goes from here up to here, and then back this way. And again, if we go back to those pictures I showed you from the ground, if you were standing on the ground here, you would just see this 1,500-foot wall. Nobody's ever been on top of this unless you get there by helicopter. So what we did was we flew south, and then I did a circle around this at about 400 feet, and Marsha took pictures of it. So here's a sequence of pictures of Meridian Butte. The thing is getting titchy. It goes backwards. Let's go forward. Okay. There. Now we're looking at it on edge. And you would never see this on the ground. You can't see how narrow this thing is. There's a similar knife edge up on the Mississippi River at Cassville, just across from Cassville. Somebody's planted a U.S. flag on the top. Where one river flows in this way to the Mississippi River, there's a knife edge where the erosion of the two rivers has come together, and that's what happened here as well. Notice it makes a sharp fish hook here. So where did the water come from that eroded this? It came off the top. It just ripped down. And this was very soft when it was first formed. This is the northern edge of the Meridian Plateau. Now we're going to head northwest again, up this way. That's looking north. Or northwest. Oh, I know why. See this pinnacle? There's the one we took a picture of just a few shots ago. We had come this way down Monument Valley. Marsha took a picture of this pinnacle. We flew south, did a circle around Meridian Butte, and now we're flying northwest again. There's Navajo Mountain in the distance, about 20 miles away now. And these are the eroded structures leading into Monument Valley. You see what swirling water does as it tears the rocks apart. There's Navajo Mountain. This is Black Mesa. The top of this was where the land used to be all the way across here before this valley was eroded by the flood. This structure here is called Boot Mesa, B-O-O-T, Boot Mesa. And Marsha thought that was fascinating because it looks like the Parthenon, so we took some pictures of that. You'll see that. This is an interesting formation. Notice this doesn't have notice all of the other hills here have the sediment, the layers. This doesn't have any layers. This is straight up and down. This is a volcanic core. And this mountain is called Agaltha Peak. Agaltha Peak. Let me get the spelling right. This is called Agatha Peak. That's the Indian name. The Spanish explorers called it El Capitan. It's 1,500 feet from the valley floor to the top of the mountain. And you'll see the Highway 163 going right by it here. To give it this one does have perspective. Now you can see the highway? That's US Highway 163. That's US Highway 163. That's Boot Mesa, and Agatha Peak is right here to our right. So we did a half circle around that. By this time, I had lost my co-pilot and navigator, and she was just a screaming photographer at this point, saying, "Get the wing, get closer, we got to take a picture of this." I'm sorry, it isn't responding, my control isn't responding well here. This is looking to the southeast, Agatha Peak, El Capitan. Now we're headed off toward the high Colorado Plateau. This is 8,000 feet. We're in a valley that's 6,000 feet. Now we're climbing back up toward Navajo Mountain. This is Boot Mesa, the one that Marsha said looked like a Parthenon. There's Navajo Mountain in the distance, about 20 miles away. And this had columns, but notice it's all layered. It's sedimentary rock as opposed to the vertical black rock of Agatha Peak, which was a volcano. Now, Agatha Peak was formed in the early part of the flood. It shoved up through the Colorado Plateau, and then when the flood washed away all the sedimentary rock around it, it was left as a stack standing. Looking to the north, passing over it, we're getting some shadows from clouds. Took some close-ups. Once again, you can see the effects of the water receding. It leaves layers of shelves. Well, I don't know why it's getting picky. All right. Now this was an interesting mesa. She took this out the front, looking across my side, and what we decided to do was we were going to fly low up alongside this mesa, because this was 1,000 feet high here. And you see this little notch? I said, we just fly right through that notch right there, about 100 feet off the ground and off the other side. So this is what it looks like doing that. Over the top. And then we see this, then we saw this white rocks formations, calcium rocks on the other side. There you can see the last edge of it as we came over it. Whoops. This is the edge, this is the escarpment that forms again. This is the Colorado Plateau basic height, and this is Monument Valley, the last of Monument Valley here. Here's Navajo Mountain. It was a It was an intrusive volcanic mountain. Did not explode, but the molten rock forced its way up through the sediment to form this dome. As I said, it's illegal to climb this mountain. You cannot get a permit to climb it because it's holy ground for the Navajo Indians. So we got close to it this way. Very legal. Yeah. Okay, this is our first look at Lake Powell, and you can see the 1,000-foot escarpment here, and that's Lake Powell, which is the Colorado River Canyon, and that canyon is about 500 feet deep there, and it's been dammed up by the Glen Canyon Dam.
When you're in that lake, you don't look at trees on the edge. You look at walls 200 or 300 feet high, just straight stone walls. Incredible.
Here's another knife edge formation. Looking at it as we went over it. That bright spot is just a reflection in the window. Now we're coming to the lower portions of Lake Powell.
See, that's a pretty good view of the lake, and you can see there are a lot of boats in it. And just to imagine what it would be like to be in the middle of that lake and be looking at those rock walls, I just couldn't imagine.
And here's the basic flat land originally, and you can imagine the gully washer it took to do this.
And there's a good view of the lake.
We're Here's the lower end of Lake Powell. The dam is right here. It's called Glen Canyon Dam, and this is Page, Arizona. And we're just about to turn on final and land at the runway here. Marsha took a shot on the ground, I think. Here. Yeah, now we're looking back to the east at Navajo Mountain from Page, Arizona. And Lake Powell is over here. Okay, we took off to the north and turned left, and this is the dam. This is the Glen Canyon Dam, and the bridge that goes across there. And you'll see how deep the lake is as we fly over the dam. This is about 500 feet deep. This is the beginning of the Grand Canyon now. So here's the Colorado River flowing out of the dam, and once again, notice it cuts through the escarpment, and the top of the plateau is absolutely flat. There's been no erosion on it at all. It was only the flood that did this as the water ran off, and this is called Marble Canyon, which is the upper Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon's in the distance then. Here's where it flows into Marble Canyon, and then it cuts its own canyon within a canyon as it goes down through the Grand Canyon. You can see this. See this river, Colorado River, goes into the Marble Canyon, and then it cuts down into the bottom of that again. Marble Canyon, Colorado River flowing through to the southwest. Now this is the Grand Canyon. This is the beginning of the Grand Canyon, and you can see the sharp edge here. We're over the Painted Desert, and you can walk right up to the rim of the canyon and look straight down. There's no erosion of this area at all. It's only over here. The gully washer washed this and left this alone. And we can legally fly up to the rim, but not over the canyon. The environmentalists have gotten airspace restrictions passed that prevent any airplane from flying. They don't want any visual pollution of airplanes flying over the canyon. So it's illegal to fly over the canyon at less than 14,000 feet. Now you can see the sharp edge. If you stood there, you'd be looking down 1,000 feet into the Colorado River Gorge. There's the Colorado River at the bottom. It was a hazy day, so the pictures aren't the sharpest, and we were getting a lot of shadows from the clouds as well that were forming above us.
Had a lot of turbulence too.
Now, this is now the little Colorado River that flows in from the southwest into the Grand Canyon. And since there are no flying restrictions over it, we decided to just take pictures of this because we could fly directly over it. Here's where it flows into the Grand Canyon, right there through that little V. Try going backwards. It goes backwards. It doesn't like forward. We have to resort to doing this locally. Some other shots of the Colorado, the little Colorado River. Maybe there's some interference with there. And you can kayak this river, or canoe it if you're brave. So that's no small stream down the bottom there. Oops. All right. Flying south from here, from the Grand Canyon, we come to an area of volcanic craters called Sunset Craters, and this crater here is called SP Crater. And because it was a hazy day, you can see the lava flowing north for 4 miles out of it, the black lava. This volcano had a crack in the side, and so the lava flowed out this way. This was just a small volcano, and there are a lot of them in the area. So there's a whole field of volcanoes here. And so I found another picture to show you what it really looks like. It's an 800-foot high crater with 800-foot high mountain with a 400-foot crater. And the reason the crater is empty is because the lava found a way out and flowed northward this way. Okay, we're coming south of Flagstaff into Sedona. This is the Mogollon Rim, and we're coming off the Colorado Plateau into the basin, which is 4,000 feet lower. The Mogollon Rim is an escarpment that is the southern edge of the Colorado Plateau. Now we'll fly down into it, descending, because we have to descend 4,000 feet to land in Sedona.
And this is all rock, red rock around
Right.
Sedona, Arizona, that is showing.
We're coming in from the northwest. Here's the Sedona Airport, sitting like an aircraft carrier on top of that mesa. And the Mogollon Rim comes from the east and goes along here.
That's how we're making the approach there.
Right.
We can.
Right, Marsha's taking these shots out the right, and what we did was, if I can go back for here. Okay, oops. What we will do is we're going to fly next to these mountains right here, go across the airport, turn left, and make a left-hand turn and land this way. So Marsha took pictures of all these hills, these mountains as we went by, or these cliffs. Didn't get too many shots out the left side of the plane. Here we are, about to land. There you can see one of those rocks that's sitting on top of a pinnacle, and it's obvious that the water just eroded around it, and this was a little bit harder, so it stayed in place. This is Oak Creek Canyon going up toward Flagstaff, and this is Sedona. We're about to land here. Coming in over the end of the runway, and now we're on the ground. This is Oak Creek Canyon, north toward Flagstaff, and this is the Mogollon Rim, which is some 4,000 feet higher than Sedona. The next day we climbed up and went over that going eastward to New Mexico. I'm just going to show you a couple more slides here. Here's the next morning at Sedona. We were taking off to the south, and then we climbed up over the Mogollon Rim, and I wanted to see Winslow, Arizona.
This is Mormon Dry Lake, which is at 7,000 feet. And here's the famous meteor crater, Winslow, Arizona. It's a mile wide. A big meteor hit the Earth millions and millions of years ago. But this was since the flood, because notice, if this were before the flood, it all would have been eroded. So this has occurred in the last 4,000 years. And here's a big sandstorm, dust storm that's coming in from the north and it's forming as we were flying eastward. Okay, I'm going to stop there.